All right, welcome back to another episode of Friends from Work. This is a podcast about all things in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and it's a podcast that's hosted by me, Kyle Sconawill, and my longtime friend from work, Robbie Earl. You know, welcome to spring, everyone. Spring is a time for growth, for change, for blooming, and that's very similar to what's happening here on Friends from Work. And so if you notice that today's episode is a little bit shorter than normal, that's because it's a double episode day. Holy cow, we have a lot going on over at Friends from Work, and it's been so much fun to finally get to share some of the really exciting developments that we've been talking and hinting at for a long time.
So if you'll remember, last week, we officially launched the Friends from Work Discord server. So even now, I think we've had a good chunk of folks come over. That's been a ton of fun. We've seen also a lot of new faces, folks that we've never seen before in the Slack. So that's turning into a kind of a whole new, even kind of more exciting thing than I think we initially thought. This week, and you can hear way more about this in the episode that dropped in parallel to this one, we are rolling out Friends from Work Plus 2.0. There is a lot going on there, and it is all, we think, really exciting for us. We hope exciting for you. Go listen to that.
So, like Robbie said, please go check out Friends from Work Plus 2.0, which, by the way, Robbie, Friends from Work Plus 2.0.
Yes.
Let's freaking go. It's so exciting, guys, that we talked for so long about it that Robbie's headphones died. So he had to go switch mid-podcast recording. Seriously, though, I think we recorded 45 minutes of just explaining the ways that we are evolving. Please check that episode out. It's out today. Same feed, everything. Just click on it, listen to it, and let us know what you think. Okay, but for today, I kind of wanted to shift gears and split this up now because we are officially turning the page, Rob, from Ant-Man and new developments, that type world, to Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which is coming out in less than a month now, which means that you and I will probably see it in the next 2 weeks. So somehow, again, It has snuck up on us like crazy. One of the things we've done in the past that we kind of want to evolve and grow with is we've done these mailbag questions, but this time we want to do a mailbag episode that is more focused pre us seeing Guardians or thinking about it at all. So I think what a better way to kick off our Guardians of the Galaxy coverage than listening to questions from our listeners that will help inspire what we're calling today's episode Burning Questions about Guardians of the Galaxy. So I think without further ado, I would like to just jump in.
Let's do it.
Let's kind of rapid fire some of these. I have, I think, 7 questions queued up here. Yeah, I haven't really thought about them a ton, so let's just wing it. You want to do it?
I love it. I don't even know what these are yet.
All right, so Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 comes out on May 4th, and here's what you had to say.
Hey, Robbie and Kyle, this is Zach. I had a question regarding the Guardians Holiday Special on Rocket and how he was gifted from Nebula Bucky's arm. So I understand he has this thing going on with other people's eyes and arms and legs and stuff like that. So I was wondering if there's going to be any address to that regarding the High Evolutionary and Rocket's whole thing together. But my question was, how are they actually going to fit that in the story? Do you think it was actual just a gag regarding the holiday special, or do you think they're actually going to use the arm in some sort of way? Because I feel like it's pretty prominent if it's Bucky's arm, his new Wakandan arm. So just wondering how they're going to fit that in the story. I'd love to hear what you guys think about it, and or do you think it was just some sort of non-canon gag? Just to get a quick laugh. All right, thank you guys. Keep it up.
I want to actually say here that I've thought this before myself a lot. As I was going back and rewatching the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special, which I just did last night. Ironically.
Okay. So you put it midway through.
So I put it after Hawkeye for Christmas sake.
Okay.
You know, they do that as a gag. It's supposed to be funny. I think that's ultimately what it's going to be, personally. But I've been wondering the same thing. Like, that's actually like somewhat of a big deal to just kind of throw out as a joke. You know what I mean? I think what they're going to do is end up saying it's like a replica or something similar, right? That's what I'm guessing. Or do you think they'll never touch it?
I mean, my thing is, I feel like they could do a fun, quick frame showing Rocket like using the arm, and it's just like if you know, and if not, it's just some other kind of gadget that Rocket's come up with. I don't see it ever being dealt with extensively on the Bucky side of things. Like, I don't feel like they'll ever have to explain like, oh man, well, I don't have my arm because Rocket stole it. Like, I think he'll just have a replacement probably if that is the case. I don't think they're going to ever try to get into the logistics of, was it the actual arm? Was it a replica? Because I feel like there's no answer there that's going to be satisfactory or improve the joke.
Like Ant-Man says, I know it's dumb to get hung up on these things. But is there a little bit of you that gets bothered that, like, what is the actual canon there? That Bucky just donated his arm and had to get a different one? There has to be. I'm not saying they're going to address it. I don't think they're going to. And actually, I'm going to circle back on similar themed answers in a second here. But I think the best headcanon would be that it's a replica arm.
Yeah, but then I just feel like it wouldn't be like, because I feel like Rocket's whole desire.
So you're saying Rocket would give it back to Bucky the next time we see Bucky? Because Bucky's not going to have one arm when we see him.
No, but I guess like if to the extent we're having a headcanon, and I do think it's primarily just it's a gag.
Correct.
But I also think I do think like that scene is canon, and so I think that if I had to have a headcanon for it, I would maybe say that Bucky, Nebula found a way to actually steal his arm and gave that arm to Rocket. I think Bucky, who is now like back on good terms with Wakanda, to the extent that he was able to get them to build a totally new custom suit for Sam, would be able to just call and say like, this is embarrassing, but I need a new arm. And they would give him a new arm. And that I think next time we see him, I will assume something like that has happened. Okay. That's my own headcanon.
All right, next question is actually two questions. I'm going to put them back to back because they're similar. All right, here you go.
Okay.
Hey, Robbie and Kyle, this is Neil. Quick music question. Because the awesome mixes are so great, people don't pay a lot of attention to Tyler Bates' scores, which I think are solid. Any thoughts on Bates or on the decision to go with John Murphy as composer now for the holiday special and for Volume 3? And since we're talking music, do you have a favorite needle drop from the first two films? Mine's got to be Cherry Bomb. All right, thanks, guys. Keep up the good work. Go Bucks.
Okay, then listen to this.
Hey, Kyle. Hey, Robbie. Hope you guys had a great Easter Sunday with your families. Calling again with more music questions.
Wow.
I know we're all sad that Tyler Bates isn't coming back for the score for Volume 3. So just wanted to hear more about your thoughts on that and how you think John Murphy is going to handle it in the future, what you want, what you don't want to see, etc. Okay. Have a great day, guys. Thanks. Bye.
Wow.
Great questions. I'll start again because I know there are a few questions. I'll have you start. Really quickly, let's just say our favorite needle drop, that first thing that Neil asked at the very end there. That's a hard one because I'm not skirting the question, but it is literally one of the things that revolutionized the MCU is how well Guardians did that.
Right.
Like that was such a thing that almost every one of them worked for me. Everyone does work for me. And I actually listened to the Guardians of the Galaxy soundtracks of those needle drops on Spotify all the time. Like a lot of times my background music is just those songs now.
Right.
The two that right away like jump out to me really quickly, and this is not just my favorite song, because I have favorite songs from that, but the ones that work the best. I think the pina colada thing when he flies out and Drax says, like, behold, like it's like a hero, and he's like, you're an idiot. You're an imbecile because it's just the music he's stealing. That one, and then the other one I always think of is the bound dum dum bound. Hey, but that's because it's the very beginning. But
it's so good.
And it sets the tone so appropriately.
Yeah.
Cherry Bomb's a great one too, though, because that's when they're doing the slow-mo shot of them like getting ready for the fight.
Dude, man, yeah. The soundtrack in Volume 1 is so good. I think Hooked on a Feeling is the one that I could not get out of my head for the longest time after I saw the movie. And I still love the scene where that shows up. So I think that's...
And he's getting like electrocuted, right? While he's saying, yeah.
Like you've covered... And it's like the guy like has the... oh no, that's going into the Pina Colada song. Anyway. But yes, the electrocuted, that's when they're being processed. So I love that one. The other, just turning to Volume 2, because I always feel like I need to give some of the Volume 2 music stuff some love. My favorite song placement in like any MCU film is the father and son scene at the very end.
That was my edit as you started talking. I'm like, but that might be the most effective one. Cat Stevens, father and son, because it makes me cry as I'm watching.
Yeah, it's. But I would say so. That's kind of in a category of its own. And yeah, I will just say like there are other really rad Immigrant Song is obviously so huge and Ragnarok and there are a ton of those moments in Guardians. But just in terms of like the lasting impact, like emotionally, the father and son choice is like huge and bringing that movie home in a way that resonates so much with you, for instance, even though so much of the movie, aside from the ending, doesn't. The other one that I want to shout out in Volume 2 that I've talked about before, I really love the chain needle drops.
I do not.
And there are two. I know that about you, and it makes me angry. I get that you hate. Look, here's the thing, Kyle. I get that you hate the album Rumors. I get that you don't appreciate Fleetwood Mac at all as a band, and just think that they're generally lacking talent and merit. I get that. I love them.
Going to murder you if you say that ever again on this podcast. I love Fleetwood Mac. I love so many songs. For some reason, that one just doesn't do it for me in that exact spot. But you know that.
Wow. Either of the spots?
Correct. The first one is better than the second one. The final one, when he's like fighting his dad, really doesn't work. I don't mind it when they're first like picking up, steam and kind of.
Yeah. Wow. Well, there you go.
Here's my last shout out. I love the song Lakeshore Drive. I'm not saying it's the best needle drop, but when I'm listening to the playlist, bloom, bloom, bloom.
Yeah.
I listen to it all the time. That might be my most listened to just track.
Wow.
Hey, and by the way, to tie us all together, maybe people need to look into Friends from Work Plus 2.0, where we can get into the best needle drops and other discussions over on Friends from Work Plus. Again, check that episode out. Okay, now to bring it all the way back, people know that I am probably a larger fan of Tyler Bates than most people and his work in the first two Guardians. It is my favorite thing about the second Guardians film, which I'm not a big fan of. And I am legitimately bummed out that he's not brought back. I think on this podcast, I've said a couple times, like, I don't get that. That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
It's not like he dropped the ball. In fact, like, far from it. I think it's one of the better all-around scores in the MCU. So I just don't get that. It's clearly a personal relationship thing that, like, that James Gunn got close with John Murphy or something. I think something else happened there. Sorry. I don't mean to imply something bad happened. I just mean that he maybe wanted to try something different. I wouldn't have done that. So to tie my final answer, what do I hope he does? Well, I hope that John Murphy still works in the main theme. Like, please do not go away from it now. Like, it's maybe a top 5 theme for me, period. The Guardians of the Galaxy theme. My wife knows that. You guys all know that. Please don't go away from that. Do not rewrite it like they do in Love and Thunder. Please. Do not start over. And then outside of that, I think there's a lot of flexibility for him to work in a new theme for the new people that you find. So just don't mess with the main one. That's my big takeaway.
Well, and I think one key distinction that would make me kind of more disappointed in them going away from that theme here than even in Thor is we talked forever about how like Thor had 3 different themes.
Correct.
And then the genius I thought of Motherspaw was being able to combine them all.
Yes.
But in retrospect, like we even talked about this, I think before, like they sort of closed the chapter on like Thor the King by blending all these together. And so I was more okay with them starting a new thing. With Guardians, with it being the last installment and it being, and they've had such a memorable theme throughout, like that would be a real bummer to me.
I guess lastly there too, I don't mean this as a slight at all, but because there was such little time to work with in the holiday special, I don't leave the holiday special thinking like, wow, the music was super magical, super special.
Yeah.
And then I Googled John Murphy and I didn't realize that his filmography is actually a ton of like classic horror things. He has like a very horror background and a lot of movies that he was famous for in like 2005. So
I'm looking at this now, huh?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to expect. So
I should say I liked the holiday special stuff. I mean,
me too.
It was sort of, but like it was perfect for what they were intending, which is this kind of classic, almost claymation feeling Christmas soundtrack where it's like a lot of little bells and like kind of elf sounding. Another MCU composer.
Oh my gosh, I love that you said that because even compared to Debney's Elf,
yeah,
like Elf has that. Which is one of the best Christmas themes ever written.
It's a really good theme.
It makes me emotional just listening to it, and I didn't get that from Murphy's. Like there's pretty music.
Yeah, that's true.
There's pretty music, but it's not that level. It doesn't ever do that. So it's not bad.
Although,
I just don't walk away going like, wow, holy cow, go check that out.
It is. Yeah, it is interesting how I thought about Debney earlier because like between Iron Man and Iron Man 2, like I think Jon Favreau had been familiar with Debney because of Elf, had used him in prior projects, liked his stuff. I think wanted him on Iron Man, was not able to get him, and so because he had a conflict, and had Ramin come in. Again, what's crazy to me, that score is, I think, only one of 2 ever nominated for Best Score at the Academy Awards, which is wild to me, the first Iron Man score. Anyway, it's just crazy it's that in Black Panther. But after that score, he then brought Debney back. So it's sort of a similar thing where you can tell if someone's enjoyed working with a certain composer. I do feel like there's this, okay, well now you'll just kind of be my go-to. And so maybe that is what happened with Gunn and Murphy.
It's so funny listening to that. You can just instantly tell John Debney's strengths the second you hear it. Like when he does the Welcome to the Stark Expo thing, it's so like that's his scene. Like holy cow, this is as good as it could be for like a classic like feel good like Elf vibe. When you're asking him to do like jong 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 jong, it doesn't quite work as well. I don't dislike it, but like that's stretching him in a way that I don't think is beneficial. So wow, what a tangent. Anyways, in Elf, unbelievable. Don't think I got that for me in the Guardians holiday special.
I would say also just in closing the music one, I just don't, and this is the tricky thing with James Gunn, and it's why I'm so impressed by Tyler Bates. I just don't remember noticing the score in Suicide Squad. I remember noticing the soundtrack again, and we have it, and it's great. But I just don't, if people out there that are more familiar with this movie, let me know if I'm wrong and if it's incredible. I'm not saying it's bad. I don't remember it, and that to me is a little telling.
Okay, 3 back-to-back-to-back questions that are very similar themes that you're going to like. It's like the next chunk of this Burning Questions episode. Here you go.
Okay.
Hey, it's Warren. My only Guardians of the Galaxy question is, who do we think's going to die? Who do we think's going to live?
Oof.
Are they going to reform a new Guardians of the Galaxy for like a part 2? Is High Evolutionary going to play a bigger role in MCU, or is he a one and done? All right, that's my questions. I'm going to go blackout now.
He gets so nervous. I love it. Okay. The reason I'm playing that first is because so many people, like, you don't like this, the prediction side of it, which is like, who's going to die? Who's going to make it? And will we see other characters?
Hey guys, Josh in DC, longtime listener. Love the work you do. As far as Guardians Volume 3 goes, I'm wondering if this is something where we're going to start seeing more multiverse characters. It's been a while since we knew about Adam Warlock, but could we see something else that has to do with him elsewhere? Is this going to be a one and done? Is there any cameos that we're going to see from other movies, or are they going to be regulated just to, post-credit scenes? I want to know who you think might make appearances. Any multiverse stars? Could we see something really strange, no pun intended, with this movie? Thanks, guys. I'll hang up and listen.
So who's going to die? Are we going to see other characters and other cameos, other things tied in? And then...
Mm-hmm.
Hey, so John Abram Earl here. It's clear in the Guardians of the Galaxy trailer that they're alluding to some sort of coming of age, an end time to the Guardians. Do we think this is the last time we'll see Rocket and or the Guardians?
Okay, you see why I played those all together.
Okay, that last one is my little brother.
What?
That's my brother that called in. I wasn't prepared for that. I love that.
I didn't know that either. I couldn't,
Yeah.
because I thought he said
Wild.
from Earl, and I didn't know.
John Abram Earl.
John
yeah,
Abram Earl.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
I don't know.
Well, what's up, John Abram?
Hi. That's incredible.
So fun.
I truly didn't know that. I couldn't understand the beginning of it, so I didn't know.
And I had no reason to expect that until I heard his voice and then was like, wait a second. Yeah, wow.
That's so
super
funny.
Fun.
Okay.
Okay.
There's two things I need to share here really quickly. I just read an article, I think last week, from James Gunn. And based on a few other things I've heard, I really get the sense that this is not tied at all. Like, he was panicked about what they did at the end of Endgame because he was like, Thor is not a part of my Guardians 3. And he was like so thankful that Taika, quote, took a bullet by having Thor join the Guardians in his film. And like the way he talked about it was very much like, no, I have a story I want to tell. It closes the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy. And I get almost the sense that he's almost annoyed whenever the Guardians got brought into other things. And that's maybe unfair for me, but I've said this so many times on this podcast. If there's one thing we know about James, it's like he has so much care, passion, and obsession for like the film part of what he's trying to tell. Like that part of the story, it's his baby. And I don't get the sense that he's super interested in the greater MCU at all, which is one of the critiques I have of Guardians of the Galaxy 2. So I am going into this film expecting there to be very few to zero cameos, tie-in to the multiverse, any characters you've seen in Doctor Strange, any of that, I expect none of it, personally.
Yeah, I think I'm in a similar spot. I think so. To answer the actual questions that I remember, I don't think that we're going to get any multiverse stuff here. It makes me think of what Taika said ahead of Love and Thunder, which is this is not a multiverse film. This is a single verse film. I think that that's what's going to happen here. I also Guardians has always been about kind of exploring the galaxy, right? Like getting out into these other worlds. I don't think there's any reason to start, like people are already kind of confused about like dimensions and universes and like, I don't think that there's any reason to mix and match that in this particular film. So I don't think multiverse stuff, and similarly, I don't think that we're going to get follow-ups like on that front or even kind of in what we would consider to be the main through line narratives that we've gotten post-Endgame so far. But what I could see happening is the introduction of elements of kind of the cosmic MCU that we haven't really gotten, that I think like in the same way that Guardians 1 sort of opened the door for some of that stuff, even if it wasn't doing so intentionally, I think Guardians 3 could, like for example, we've had these talks about the Nova project forever. The Nova Corps got decimated, by Thanos, and now we're kind of seeing the Guardians seemingly becoming like a new Nova Corps. There's sort of precedent for that being a thing in the comics where like I wonder if this becomes a way for certain, we talked about this last week about how Secret Invasion seems to be kind of giving us a version of the more classic Skrulls, like the bad guy, evil alien Skrulls. And I kind of feel like now this could be setting up, or giving us the chance to have a more classic version of like the Nova Corps, where we actually have like a Richard Rider Nova. And I wonder if just bit by bit, we're going to have things populate the cosmic side of Marvel properties that, again, we just never had time to explore because we really only had the Guardians, and James Gunn wanted those movies to be so focused. And then we were at Infinity War and Endgame, to where now it's like, I mean, there are, like, talking about classic Jim Starlin stuff or talking about like more recent stuff from the 2000s and forward, a ton of like really, really well-loved cosmic stories, like including Silver Surfer stuff, like all, like all these characters, even some that we maybe associate with the Fantastic Four that have kind of gotten lives beyond that, and so I could see this planting the seeds for those kinds of characters to start appearing, even if it doesn't introduce those characters, if that makes sense.
I 1,000% agree with you. I think there's a give and take there. I think I would ask our audience or urge our audience, don't go in expecting Doctor Strange level of cameos, like from the trailer. And so like, if you're looking for it to be super tied into the multiverse saga they're telling right now, I think you would be disappointed personally. But I think the positive side of that is, like, of all the films in the last year and a half, this is probably the least I am concerned about from a filmmaking perspective if it's going to be super quality. Like, I am almost so certain it's going to look incredible. The music's going to fit perfectly. It's going to sound incredible. It's going to be a cool story. And I know that James Gunn has literally poured his heart into telling the story of these characters. So if you go in expecting a good movie, I think you're going to be really pleased. Personally.
Yeah.
Now to who is going to die, we don't know. We never know. And we're not usually in the speculation business, but because a lot of people are wondering this, do you have a take one way or the other? I'll start. Again, just guessing, pure speculation. Warning, Kevin Malone. This is, I don't think Adam Warlock is a one-off. I think he'll be around. Again, guessing. I could also see the High Evolutionary not being a one-off and staying around. I think that half of the Guardians are going to die, and I'm basing it on more external circumstances than anything. I think Drax is going to die, partially because Dave Bautista is ready to move on. So I think they're not even going to leave that door open.
And I could see him also, he and James Gunn both wanting to kind of restore some like seriousness to that character.
Yes, like a huge sacrifice or something, so that like Drax is the ultimate play there. I think that Star-Lord will survive because I think that Pratt would be open to returning to that role in another facet. This is, again, a guess. Ironically, I was like 90% sure Rocket's dead because of all the marketing and how James Gunn has talked about this is Rocket's story, but I almost feel like it's so on the nose and Bradley Cooper would be so easy to return that maybe that's like a red herring, that it is Rocket's story, but he actually survives. I don't know. I'm 50-50 on that one.
Yeah.
Rocket might be dead. I can't decide that one. Nebula, I think, wants to be a part of this universe, so I think there's more to tell there. Survives. Gamora survives because they're not going to re-kill her. And so then maybe that leaves Mantis dying. I don't know. Groot dying again? I don't know. No, Groot stays.
So there, we won't. Yeah, okay. So we won't talk about this. This is funny because I know this is now a running joke. I'm not going to get into this now, actually, I promise. But there is a pretty massive Marvel story, I think from the Roy Thomas era in the 70s, called Celestial Madonna, that is this big kind of cosmic trippy, back in this like acid dipped era of Marvel Comics. That is all about Mantis as a character. It's like a pretty massive story. She's a very different character in the comics, in the level of significance and again, kind of seriousness. And because we've gotten some hints from Gunn that this is a really big character, this is like an actor that I think people should be paying more attention to. Part of me thinks that there's more room for Mantis than most of the Guardians to kind of like stick around and find a new role.
Okay, so let me go Drax and Rocket, yes, die.
Okay. I think I agree with you on Drax. I think I probably agree on Rocket although I'm with you that like it feels almost too, it's like the way we felt about Hawkeye going into Age of Ultron, where it's like you feel so much like they're foreshadowing it that I'm like, but
they won't kill Gamora, right? You agree with that?
I don't think they'll kill Gamora or Nebula or Groot because they've in different ways.
Yes, agreed.
You know, they could, right? I don't think it would be horrible if they did.
Quill, they could kill. It's possible.
They could. So here's the three that I want to. The thing with specifically Rocket, Quill, and well, I guess really just Rocket and Quill, I would say.
Okay.
I'm a little like I'm wondering what it would look like for those characters to continue on.
Okay.
And in part because I think that like the way that they were integrated and like they were those two characters and Gamora, although Gamora, like we said, is sort of in a different boat because she's already died, but they were the ones that were really heavily featured in Infinity War and Endgame, especially Rocket in both. And so I think we've gotten so much development there, and we've already gotten the like, oh, here's a talking raccoon, crazy, he's interacting with people on Earth,
and we're about to get so much more development on him.
Yeah, that I'm like, I don't know if there's anywhere else I can see them utilizing that, because it's not as though, well, I don't know. There are ways they could do it,
right? But Quill could theoretically survive, go back to Earth, maybe join the Avengers, like just be a different thing. I do think the Guardians of the Galaxy, as we know them, will be gone. Like, I don't think it'll be like a group that travels around and helps.
Well, and that's why, I wonder if there's talking again about some kind of older cosmic-y stuff, that these things that are known as big moments within the Marvel mythology. Peter Quill, as he was originally introduced, was also a totally different character than what James Gunn gave us. Now, since the comics have come to kind of reflect Gunn's iteration of all of these characters to some degree, but originally, like, Star-Lord was a much more almost well, because of the stories he shows up in, like more of like a military leader. Like you see him working within it's a lot grimmer. It's not like, and I don't think that they would ever change Chris Pratt's character entirely, but I just am thinking as I'm talking about, like, if we did keep that character around, if things were to kind of progress cosmically, I could see him being our anchor to like our kind of point of view for seeing some of these other things unfold, and him being the link to Earth now, to where like if like there's a particular story in Hickman's Avengers that we'll be coming to soon enough, that is kind of the halfway point between the start of his run and Secret Wars, where it ends. That's a very cosmic, not multiverse, like space battle, like this massive epic thing. And that there's a way where I could see the MCU doing some version of these other comics from like earlier days, combined with some version of that in a way to lead up to Secret Wars that would make sense and kind of keep us on a trajectory that would also give Peter Quill like a really prominent and important and totally different role that would finally not cheapen the fact that he's still around. Like, I don't think we would see Peter out with like a new group where it's like, these are my new Guardians, or even if it's something else, but I could see him involved with like larger enterprises, like a new Nova Corps or some other group.
So you mostly agree with me, because that's what I think too.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. Look, anytime I have the opportunity to just talk about my feelings on a thing versus make a hard call that can be seen as like a black and white prediction, I'm going to take that option A every time, even if no one even gave it to me.
We are anti-clickbait. Even if we wanted to try, we couldn't do it.
Yep. You're like,
clickbait.
I'm just going to...
He could die, but I could also see him doing this. Click on this to hear more.
Friends from work. Well, that's an interesting question.
Friends from work. I'm not going to get into this now, but let me give you a little explanation of what I mean. ... Rapid fire. I think 3 or 4 fun ones. Ready?
Hey guys, this is Carter. my burning question for Volume 3 is, will we see the return of Sylvester Stallone and the other Ravagers from Volume 2's credit scene? And could we potentially see them form a new Guardians team with Adam Warlock and the surviving members of the main crew? Love the podcast, guys. Keep it up.
I do think we'll see some Ravagers and some cameos there. I think it'd be a little weird because James Gunn's so particular about his story that he would just leave that out there. So I'm not surprised that Sylvester Stallone's not in the marketing, but I would be surprised if he doesn't make an appearance in the film. And maybe on the last question, probably not a group like that, but like you said, I do see this movie maybe expanding the cosmic side, that we look back in 8 years and be like, oh, remember when Guardians 3 like really opened up this door? And it might be something like that Warlock's around still or something.
Yeah. I think that Adam Warlock is going to wind up kind of having his own role beyond this. He's such an interesting character that I think they're going to want to kind of milk a lot out of. And so I think, and I mean, Will Poulter as an actor, I think is going to be able to give them a lot of really interesting things moving forward. So I think he will continue on in some other capacity. I don't see it being in a team like that necessarily. But I do think the Stallone, like it would be it's weird because I don't know how that would necessarily tie back in at this point, because the only
could be a cameo though. That's it.
Yeah, for sure. I think something like that. What I was going to say is it's just, you're right. James Gunn was so intentional about having that scene.
What if like all the other Ravagers, like Rise of Skywalker style, show up to help in the last fight or something?
Yeah, that could be cool.
Or something like that, I mean.
Yeah. No, I could see it I don't think it's going to be a key part at all, but I could see it being something that shows up in some way.
Hey friends, this is Tanner. I'm definitely not a Skrull. I have two kind of on the fun side questions for you for Guardians. First of all, do you think it's possible that Rocket Raccoon's origin will be tied to him being an actual raccoon from planet Earth? And second question, do you think it's more possible that Drax will die, or that Drax will just be slowed down enough that we can no longer see him? All right. Thanks, guys.
I enjoyed those.
That's my response too. I enjoyed it. I actually think if Rocket, that'd be funny if he was from Earth. I'm trying to think if that would like downplay any actual character beats. I know those were not serious questions, but
yeah,
it could be kind of funny. And maybe like he was also brainwashed, so he doesn't even remember he's from Earth.
Yeah.
In that process, of being created or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's going to wind up being, which maybe this is obvious now, but a link between him and the High Evolutionary. So I think in some ways that's going to be a question about.
That's true.
The High Evolutionary's origins within the MCU too. And that's why, like, I can already see how James Gunn, one thing I've always thought he's so good at, even in Volume 2 for the issues that we've raised, I think he does, like when you get to the end of Volume 2, it's kind of remarkable how much the different threads that he puts out in the opening like 10 or 15 minutes of the movie all come back and tie together like pretty perfectly.
Like the batteries.
Again, yeah, right. Like whether you like those threads, but like he's got a kind of a deft hand in terms of making like the things we've talked about with certain movies, things feeling kind of shoehorned in. That's not a thing that I have ever felt from a Gunn issue or from a Gunn project. So yeah, I think that the Rocket High Evolutionary plot is shaping up to be a really interesting and a really compelling one.
Last question, and I saved this one for last because you're going to have to take the lead on this here, and you may not know this either, but here you go.
Hey guys, Will here. My question was, I believe in the comics, Adam Warlock has the soul gem in his forehead, but what do you guys think they're going to explain that to be in the movie, since obviously we don't have the soul gem or soul stone anymore? Anyway, yeah, thank you.
Man, that is a really great question. And I kind of like, I want to do probably honestly the Comics Corner stuff on Friends from Work Plus is going to be Adam Warlock heavy, because it's just a character that we've never really delved into at all. And like I've said already in this episode, there's so much to that character. But that's one of the biggest question marks for me. I would say that, the Jim Starlin, Adam Warlock, like Infinity Gauntlet stuff and Infinity War, those are I would think the most famous Adam Warlock stories. And the Soul Stone is a big part of that, in a way that I think, I do think actually makes the Soul Gem make a lot more sense than it does in the MCU. Like the MCU, it doesn't not make sense. They just don't really go into it. It's kind of this hand wavy, but
the other stones, you could explain their powers, but that one you're like, it just is something.
And it is sort of a core part of Adam Warlock's role and the way that he deals with the Infinity Stones as a contrast to how Thanos does. Like there's a lot of stuff there that I'm like, if we don't have Thanos around, that's an interesting change with what Adam Warlock will be moving forward. And yeah, if we don't have the Soul Stone around, or the Soul Gem, which means in the, we did kind of get this in the MCU, this like Soul Stone plane, but that's a much bigger thing within the Marvel Comics. Like it's an actual place, and so it's almost the opposite of like the Doctor Strange feelings I had after Infinity War, where I'm like, okay, they've now made the Eye of Agamotto the Time Stone, but that's such a big part of Doctor Strange's character in the comics. What is he going to be like moving forward without that? It's like the reverse here, where like they've made such a big part in the comics about a thing that was never even in the MCU version by the time Adam Warlock comes in. Sorry, I said that in a confusing way.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
So I don't know. I think they're going to have to figure out, James is going to have to figure out a way, and I'm sure that he did a long time ago probably, because he probably knew early on, by the time he even did Guardians, that the Infinity Stones were going to be the subject of a much larger arc, within the Avengers movies. And so I have to imagine that if he's had the script written for as long as he has, and given that Adam Warlock tease in Volume 2, that he's figured out a way to make that character unique and kind of give him some of the same qualities and powers. But yeah, great question, and one that I've thought about a good bit. And I do think that's going to merit its own discussion, and like I said, probably a reading over on Friends from Work Plus.
And just more reason that it's too big of a character, I think, to just have die in one movie. And Will Poulter's too powerful of a movie star to have do one movie, I think. So
right.
I think he'll stick around. Thank you, everyone, for sending those in. That's really fun. I actually always enjoy those, not just because of the content, but also to hear everyone's voices. I love saying that.
And thank you all for sending those and for all the kind words throughout those messages. All of y'all were way nicer than you had to be. You could have shouted questions at us and demanded that we answer them, and we still would have.
Play Ya Ya Ding Dong. Play Ya Ya Ding Dong.
Oh man, Candace is actually planning a Eurovision, like the event, not the movie, like watch party in the coming months. I
think that's my first ever Eurovision shout out on this podcast.
Yeah, there you go. I don't even. Anyway, I also just cannot get over the fact that my brother showed up on the show. So shout out John Abram. Thanks for calling in and listening.
So full disclosure, Robbie and I have now been talking for 4 hours and 15 minutes today. We started at 1:00 and it is now 5:08.
Wow.
Unbelievable. So much fun today. Check out our episode about Friends from Work Plus 2.0 and the big announcements going on over there. Check out last week's episode for more explanation on Screensaver and Discord. I'm even getting lost. And then thank you for listening to this today. Next week is full-blown Guardians mode with one of our favorite episodes, which is Guardians of the Galaxy, the Saga So Far. We'll be throwing back to our old school style Saga So Far episode, just talking about in the MCU, where have these characters been? what plot lines can we trace before this film so that you are as prepped for this movie as ever before. And then, as a little side note, we're trying to make sure we have a friendly reminder available on YouTube, which is a scripted, quick 10-minute thing to catch you up if you've never seen any of the Guardians movies before you now go see Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. So much coming. And then behind the scenes, Robbie and I are trying to plan maybe flights to California again. just a lot. We're so excited about all this. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your support. Please rate, review, subscribe, listen, tell your friends, share it, check out Friends from Work Plus, all of that stuff. And then we'll see you next week here on Friends from Work.